ways to planet. People innovating around planet.
Does that ring any bells for you? Do you know what I'm talking about? Huh? Cross-cultural communication. Cross-cultural. So crossing cultures? Yes? Yeah, because you might have noticed that culture impacts how we show up in the world. And even within a community, you can have a lot of different cultures.
Yeah.
So you have your aunties, they have their way of doing things, yeah?
Yeah.
Then you have your younger siblings have a different way of doing things, and the way that they talk and what they find important, what's valuable to them changes depending on who they are, right? So even within a community, you have a wide array of people who act very differently, and if you want to sell them something, you need to know who you're selling to. Yeah? Because what is valuable to one person is not valuable to the other person.
Yeah.
Now imagine you're not just selling to your aunties or your younger siblings. Now you're selling to someone who comes from a completely different country or even a different continent. Yeah? So if someone travels in from Germany, how are you going to sell your product to them compared to how are you going to sell to your high school teacher? It's very different because they're very different. So I took cross-cultural communication and marketing and global marketing and all of these things during business school. I have a master's in international marketing and management. And one of the main focuses was understanding how are people different, how do we understand culture? And one of the main things that I took from my 6 years in business school studying these things is that there are people who come from a high context culture and there are people who come from a low context culture, and no matter where you're from, you're positioned somewhere on this scale, okay? Now by low context and high context, I'm gonna explain to you what I mean because I don't assume that you know what this means. Low context means that what you say is what the words are supposed to be understood exactly like they're said. So there's no context to understand. If I tell you, I'm doing this because of that, then that's what I mean and there's nothing more to it. Yeah? So I come from Denmark, it's a very low context culture. So we say what we mean and we mean what we say and there's no analyzing what's going on around it. And then I spent 4 years studying Chinese business culture. And in China, they're very high context, which means that they very often say the opposite of what they mean, but everyone knows what that means if you're in the culture. Yeah? So they would very often say yes or maybe when they meant no. All the Chinese people would know it meant no. All the Danish people thought it meant yes. Okay? The Chinese people didn't want to say no because it embarrasses the person they're talking to. So they thought that they did them a favor by saying maybe instead of saying no, because then I don't embarrass you in front of your friends. I'm doing you a favor. Everybody knows this means no. The Danish people are like, why would you say no? Why would you say yes when you mean no? Yeah. Right? Why would you say, it doesn't make any sense. So it created a lot of conflicts because we don't speak the same language. So even though we're all speaking English, we don't understand each other in the same way because we come from different cultures, we have different backgrounds, and what we say and what we do and what we think is important is different depending on where you come from and what you grew up with. So becoming a global citizen really boils down to how do you open your mind to what other people are going through, to what is important to the person that you're talking to. How can you take this thing that is important right now in your local context and then package it in a way that it now also becomes important to someone who comes from a different place? Or maybe you want to sell it, you want to send it abroad. Maybe you want to start exporting things. How do you make what is valuable here sound and be valuable abroad? So this really comes down to one of the very, very basic and very first things that you should know when you're selling a product is getting in the head of the person you're selling to. Most people, when they start a business, they focus on, I want to sell this thing because I want to sell it and I think it's valuable and I'm going to talk about it in a way that I would say it's valuable. And then nobody buys. Because you didn't make it valuable to them. You didn't talk about it in a way that was valuable to the person you're selling to. Yeah? And just to break things down, there's a lot of people like, I don't want to sell, I don't like selling. If you have a business, you're selling. Because if you're not selling, you're not making money, you don't have a business. Okay? So, does anyone here have any weird feelings about selling? You want to not sell your stuff, or you feel like it's kind of awkward, or maybe it feels a little bit icky having to go out and sell your products? No? Yeah. Thank you for being honest, because I bet you there's more people who think it, but they don't feel it. We have gotten selling has gotten a bad reputation. Okay, but selling has gotten a bad reputation because we only realize we're being sold to when we don't like being sold to. Who in here wants the newest iPhone? If you had the money wasn't a problem. Who wants the newest iPhone? Yeah, a few people. A PlayStation? A Netflix subscription? Okay, we're getting more in my hands. Great. Just trying to see. Guess what? None of you were born wanting any of these things. Okay, you don't come out of the womb wanting a Netflix subscription or an iPhone or a PlayStation. You have been sold the idea that you want it. But because it didn't feel icky, it didn't feel like someone was trying to push you to buy something that you didn't like, you don't feel that you're being sold to. So I would really recommend that the next time you feel like buying something, there's something you want to buy, maybe it's like the newest foundation or the newest technology or the newest software, whatever it is, you really want something, try to analyze what happened to you that made you want to buy this thing. Because something happened. It was the packaging, it was the marketing, it was someone else recommending it, whatever it is, you've been sold on the idea that you wanted. And the cool thing is, if you learn how to sell the same way that you like being sold to, you're gonna love selling. Yeah? Because it no longer feels icky. It no longer feels weird. It no longer feels, I don't want to go there and put myself out there in a situation that's uncomfortable. So I know we're going a little bit all over the place as we're starting out. I just really want you to wrap your mind around the inside of the buyers that you want to sell to. Who here already has a business idea that you know this is where you want to do? Yes. Can you tell me your business idea?
Well, thank you. My name is Luis Mbabazi. My business idea is based on transforming agriculture by digitalizing it using mobile phones so that farmers can get real-time information on their ends. And then I think that by using with our context we have, and with this knowledge and the technology being brought up, either in university and other colleges, we can use them to transform agriculture and then supporting farmers as well.
Okay. And have you talked to any farmers about this idea that you have about using cell phones?
Yeah, of course I have created some surveys, and so far I have created around 300 surveys, and they have, basically before we get to, normally we work with farmers because I already have running business, mainly on consulting farmers. So when we are providing advice, we get to see their pains, and with those pains, that's where we know how we can help them and get to solve those problems. So we've worked with those farmers, and also we've carried out some research, some surveys with farmers, and also other players, not only farmers, but also those people who are in need of farmers, like financial services, even academic.
Isn't what? Isn't people all good life?
Good life.
Prosperity.
Yeah.
That's what Steve Jobs did perfectly, right? When he announced the iPod, he didn't talk about the technical functions. He said it's 1,000 songs in your pocket. Do you know about the iPod? Has anyone had an iPod?
Yeah, I use it.
Yeah, it might have been before your time. I remember when the iPod came out, okay? Back in the day, I had to carry around a disc jockey, okay? So I needed a CD You know what a CD is?
Yes.
Yes, okay, good. I have to check how old you are. I had to carry around a whole big device that put CDs in it, and each CD would have maybe 25 songs on it. Yeah? So when Steve Jobs came out and said, you have 1,000 songs in your pocket, that changed the game for everybody. He didn't come out and say, these are all the technical things that are put into this thing so that you can have it in your pocket, and then people understand, oh, that means I can have 100,000 songs. He spoke in the language of the person that he wanted to sell to. So the deeper you can get inside the head of your buyers and speak to them in their language, the more likely you are to catch their attention. How many in here as a university student? That's really great, and it's also not so great. So I'm going to tell you what that means. University is great because it teaches you how to learn things, right? The main thing I took out of my years of business school is I learned how to learn things fast. I haven't used a single thing I learned in business school apart from that. Inconsistent crops, inconsistent harvests. It would be maybe they have less harvest throughout a year than they could have.
Like mostly you have two major problems in agriculture, especially in smallholder farmers, because most of Rwandan farmers are smallholder farmers. If you say smallholder farmers, those ones who own like less than 2 hectares of land, and the only people in Rwanda who own that less than that part of land is only in province. So we have a problem that land is scattered, and people to show them this importance of this. Increasing the productivity, even getting rid to pest and other things. First of all, you have providing agronomic knowledges and practices, and after that, in this part of providing agronomic knowledges, mainly based on increasing productivity, right? And after that, and then we teach them how they can tailor out business plans, how can they commercialize agriculture. I think it's only based on capacity building farmers, not only in farming but also in market-wise.
Right. More into the heads of where's the farmer coming from. So what the farmer might be experiencing is, like you say, lack of food security. What does it feel like for him when he can't get enough crops for him to feed his family and sell enough for him to keep the income for long enough for the next harvest, right? It sounds really simple, but it really needs to be simple, because if you understand that your farmer, if his biggest worry or her biggest worry is, I'm not going to be able to feed my family, then that is the pain that you're solving. Or maybe they're worried about not being able, maybe there's, force majeure, right? There's the hands of God come in, now the crop is destroyed for whatever reason. That is terrifying for a farmer, because where are they now going to get the crops to make the income that they need and feed their family again? So it really comes down to feeling secure in that they can support their family and they can make enough income maybe to invest a little bit more into their farms so that they can keep growing, so that the risk of them not being able to feed their family becomes smaller and smaller. So it sounds great what you're talking about when you have digitalized solutions and you're talking about capacity building and all of this, but once you really fully understand that it's the fear of not being able to feed their families that you're solving, now you're going to be able to talk to them from a different point, right? And once you're able to talk to them from their fears or their worries or what they already know is a struggle, they're more likely to listen to you with your solutions. Because if you just come to a farmer and you're like, hey, I have the smartphone and we're going to do this and we're going to do that, we're going to capacity build and you're going to have all, and they're going to be like, you don't know, you're kids, I've been doing this for 20 years, you don't know what you're talking about. But if you come to them and say, hey, I know that this last 3 months have been rough, there's been no rain, there's been no, I know that probably now you have a lot less crops than you had the last time. If you can start really talking to them about what does their life look like and what is the pain point that you're solving, now they're listening at least, right? And then you can start talking about smartphones, right? Software, capacity building, learning these things, because then they know that you know what you're talking about. And that's really something that I would love for all of you to think about. when you're designing your business, what you're doing is that you're figuring out what problem can I solve. Then you're figuring out whose problem am I solving? What is this person like? What does it feel like being in the pain that they're in of having to deal with this problem? How do I talk about it in a way that they know that I know what they're going through? Then you're going to figure out, how am I going to package the offer? I have this solution, how am I going to package it? For some of you, it's going to be software solutions. For some of you, it's going to be physical products. For some of you, it's going to be services. For some of you, it's going to be subscriptions or membership-based. You're going to have so many different ways you're going to be able to package your offer, but you need to make a decision of how are you going to solve this problem. What is it going to look like? What can the person that you're selling to expect? Maybe you're going to have different versions of the same solution, right? Like Zoom, they have, if you have, just use Zoom, right? We know Zoom, all of us? Yeah? Okay. With Zoom, there's a free version. You get up to 40 minutes in a call. You get up to a maximum number of people. Then you have a lower paid version where you can have the calls as long as you want. Then you have now the webinar version, it's like $500 per month. You know, so they have different packages depending on who are they serving. The product is basically the same. But they were smart enough to know we have a lot of different types of people who are going to need this for different things. So we're going to package it in different ways and selling it at different price points that makes sense for the person I'm selling that package to. Then you're going to have some offers that are just there to anchor your prices. A lot of businesses are going to show you 3 prices because they expect you to take the one in the middle. That's buyer psychology, right? We don't necessarily have to get into all of that. But think about, how do you want to package your offer? What is it that you're actually selling them? And how is that, the different versions of your offer, how is that going to solve the problem for them? And make sure that whatever you do in your business, it's always about them and not about you. Okay? This is what most entrepreneurs don't like hearing. It's like, we're out here saving the world. Yes. Focus on the world, not on you. You, for example, with your farmers, how can you make sure that you help them optimize their crops the best way possible? Once you've sold them on the thing, over-deliver to the extent that you can to make sure that they have the best possible experience with you. And they optimize their crops and they change their lives. If your focus gets to be on the person that you're selling to more than anything else, you're going to end up having a very successful business because people will want to buy from you. Yes?
I would like to ask a question about that, because most of the time we say customers, but we don't really define them. For example, we know customers, they have even be divided to something else. Like, for example, I am parent to some kids, and these kids like some toys. So, as a business owner who wants to make sure that I'm hooked up to their products, so what would they do? Like for innovation, right? For selling, where they could do innovation? Are they going to do innovation for kids, or they're going to do innovation for people as me who going to buy those products for my kids?
So do you mean that the toys need to be innovative, or the way you sell the toy?
Like, for example, customers will be like the consumer and the users, right? So like, for example, me, I am the one who's able to pay for those toys, right? And those are users and my kids. So like, business owner who wants to make sure that those business is going to be carried out on for years, being like as me who is buyer, or for those kids who are going to be users for this product.
So I think the thing about innovation is great, and innovation is also your capacity.
Hey, let's go back. What about economy? Affordable education that brings better life among people, especially how people live.
Yeah.
It isn't reduce inequalities. Sustainable citizen communities. Prosperity.
With one farmer and trying to give a testimony to others, realize the problem they have, and sometimes when they're not having a good harvest for their crops, they say, oh my God, these farming activities suck, right? And you show them the reason why it's not being productive. So sometimes you have to plant them this knowledge, getting to realize what they need. Because most of farmers we have in Rwanda, they are just practicing the same thing they have been practicing for like 20 years ago, right? Like traditional agriculture and farming, and now we have sustainable farming, climate smart agriculture, and the other things. Sometimes they don't have even these skills of farm setup, like adopting machinery farming and the other technologies. So showing them how these technologies are going to help them and they boost up their productivity as well as well-being in terms of food security and profitability for their business or their activities. I think that's where we are using now, raising awareness and also educating them because the knowledge is the power. I think that's what we're showing them, because unless he's educated, that's when he realizes that this is the fault. Maybe I'm going to find this agronomist and the other consultant in agriculture. But those people who are not educated, sometimes to realize the problem, it becomes sometimes late, right? So we go there in the first place and they show them whom can reach out very fastly and getting to teach them where the fault is, and they're getting to find a solution for them for what is going to work on them, and that's what we're doing. Thank you.
Academic language, because in order for me to submit my master thesis, I had to use a lot of very long, complicated words that normal people who didn't have the same degree would understand. So having an academic degree can hurt your sales, especially if your ideal audience is not an academic person. So understand how your people talk. The most important thing that you can do for your business is understand who you're selling to, how they think, how they understand the problem that you help them solve, and how to talk about the solution that you have in a way that makes it desirable to them. So how are you going to be talking about things in a way that they understand, hey, I actually want this solution? Now we're back to the idea of being sold to in a way that doesn't feel like selling. So sometimes what you need to do is be so clear about the problem that they're facing that you talk to them in a way that they can realize this is exactly the life that I have, and this part of my life that you're talking about, I would love it to not be this way anymore. And then you barely even have to talk about the solution before they feel like, okay, you have the solution because you understand my problem so well. So get really, really clear on what is the problem that you're solving in a way that they would describe it. Yeah? So how would your farmers describe the problem that they have?
Actually, yeah, sometimes they don't.
Capacity to solve problems and overcome challenges will determine how long you stay in business. Because there will always be new problems. And the bigger your business grows, the bigger the problems get. So what happens when you're faced with challenges is that your self-leadership is being challenged. Are you able to lead yourself and your business out of this challenge to the other side? Now you've learned how to solve that challenge. The next challenge is going to be different. And then you solve that challenge, and you solve that challenge. And at one point, once you've solved enough challenges, you know that that is your expertise. Now you've become the challenge solver, right? And then you're being faced with bigger and bigger challenges, and every time you know, oh, I've proven to myself so many times that I can solve hard things, that I know I'm going to be able to solve this one. I just don't know how yet. But solving and facing challenges is going to be one of your main tasks as a business owner. There's never going to be a time where you're not going to have either you're going to have a challenge, you're going to have just solved a challenge, or another one is just coming up. Okay? So look at it as an opportunity to build the skill of solving challenges.
Are you telling me that I can start?
Start your business. You already know what challenge is coming up. Start working on the solution already. Yeah? There will always be challenges, so see this as an opportunity to grow into a more expanded version of yourself. Yeah? See this as an opportunity to grow yourself and your capacity and your capabilities to solve problems. And you're going to end up being an expert problem solver, and it's going to change your life.